The crisp autumn air swirled fallen leaves against the chain-link fence of Oakwood Elementary. Inside, the hum of learning filled the hallways. Among the chattering students, 6-year-old Billy blended into the background. He was small for his age. With a mop of brown hair that perpetually fell into his eyes. He wasn't disruptive or particularly outgoing, just quiet. Billy preferred observing the world from the edges. A silent participant in the daily dramas of first grade. He clutched his worn dinosaur backpack tightly, a small comfort in the bustling environment. Ms. Evans, a woman with a warm smile and a perpetually kind expression etched on her face, had a knack for seeing beyond the surface. Years of teaching had honed her ability to discern the subtle nuances of a child's behavior, the unspoken anxieties hidden beneath shy smiles. She'd seen it all, from scraped knees and playground squabbles to deeper, more troubling issues that lingered beneath the surface. Her classroom was a haven, a safe space where children felt seen, heard, and valued. She believed in fostering not just academic growth, but also emotional well-being. From the first day of school, Ms. Evans noticed Billy, not because he was causing trouble, but because of his quiet reserve. He rarely spoke unless spoken to, and even then, his answers were brief and hesitant. She made a mental note to connect with him, to draw him out of his shell. She saw a flicker of something in his eyes, a hint of vulnerability that tugged at her heartstrings. She knew that beneath the quiet exterior, there was a story waiting to be told. The first few weeks of school unfolded with the predictable rhythm of reading lessons, coloring projects, and playground games. But amidst the routine, Ms. Evans began to notice a peculiar pattern in Billy's behavior. Every time the school bell rang, signaling the start of class, the end of recess, or the dismissal for the day, Billy would flinch. It wasn't a subtle movement, not a mere twitch. It was a full-bodied reaction, a tightening of his shoulders, a quick intake of breath, and a momentary closing of his eyes as if bracing for impact. The first couple of times, Ms. Evans dismissed it as a simple startle response, perhaps an oversensitivity to loud noises. She told herself it was nothing to worry about, that many children were initially startled by the jarring sound of the bell. But as the days turned into weeks, the flinching persisted. It became a constant, an unsettling metronome marking the passing of time. Ms. Evans found herself unconsciously watching for it, her gaze drawn to Billy whenever the bell was about to ring. The other children seemed oblivious, accustomed to the sound and unfazed by its abruptness. But for Billy, it was clearly a source of anxiety. Her initial attempts to rationalize it as a quirk began to crumble under the weight of her growing concern. It wasn't normal. It wasn't just a startle. There was something deeper, something more troubling at play. The flinch spoke of fear, of anticipation, of something unpleasant lurking just beneath the surface. Ms. Evans knew she couldn't ignore it any longer. She needed to understand what was triggering such a profound reaction in such a small child. Driven by her concern, Ms. Evans began implementing subtle strategies to help Billy. She started with positive reinforcement, praising him for his bravery and resilience during other loud noises, like the clatter of lunch trays or the boisterous cheers. During gym class, she hoped that by associating loud sounds with positive experiences, she could gradually desensitize him to the bell. "Billy, I noticed how well you handled the noise in the cafeteria today. That was very brave," she'd say, offering a warm smile. She also tried gentle questioning, pulling him aside after the bell rang to check in. "Billy, are you feeling okay? The bell is quite loud, isn't it?" she'd ask, her voice soft and reassuring. But Billy would only shrug, his eyes downcast, offering a mumbled, "Yes, ma'am," before quickly retreating back to his desk. He seemed unable or unwilling to articulate what he was feeling. She even tried a small, almost imperceptible head nod of encouragement right before the bell was scheduled to ring, as if to give him a preemptive sign that he was safe. This didn't work either. Despite her efforts, nothing seemed to work. The flinching persisted, an unwavering response to the sound that plagued him. The positive reinforcement didn't seem to register, and the gentle questioning only seemed to make him more withdrawn. Each failed attempt only deepened the mystery and amplified Ms. Evans' worry. It was becoming increasingly clear that whatever was causing Billy's reaction was far more complex than a simple aversion to loud noises. It was a deeply ingrained response, rooted in something she couldn't yet understand. The more she tried, the more she realized she was missing a crucial piece of the puzzle. The turning point came on a blustery Tuesday afternoon. The class was engrossed in a reading lesson when the shrill, urgent clang of the fire alarm sliced through the AI. It was a jarring, unexpected sound, far more intense and piercing than the regular school bell. The children, momentarily stunned, quickly followed Ms. Evans' instructions, lining up to evacuate the building. But Billy's reaction was different. He didn't just flinch. He froze, his eyes widened with terror, his small body trembling uncontrollably. That he clutched his ears, letting out a small, choked sob. That Ms. Evans rushed to his side, kneeling down to his level. "Billy, it's okay. It's just a drill," she reassured him, her voice calm but firm. He didn't seem to hear her. He was lost in his own world of fear, his face pale and tear-streaked. It took several minutes of gentle coaxing and comforting for Ms. Evans to guide him out of the classroom and join the other students. Even outside, away from the immediate sound of the alarm, Billy remained visibly shaken, clinging to Ms. Evans' hand as if it were a lifeline. Witnessing his extreme reaction, a chilling thought took root in Ms. Evans' mind. That it wasn't just about the sound of the bell. That it was about the fear associated with it. And the intensity of that fear suggested something far more serious than a simple phobia. Could something be happening at home? Could the bell, or a similar sound, be associated with a negative or even traumatic experience? The possibility hung heavy in the air, a dark cloud casting a shadow over her initial assumptions. The fire drill wasn't just an incident. It was a pivotal moment that shifted Ms. Evans' focus from the school to the home, from a simple quirk to a potential crisis. With the unsettling possibility of a troubled home life weighing heavily on her mind, Ms. Evans began to observe Billy's interactions with his parents during morning drop-off and afternoon pickup. She made sure to do so discreetly, positioning herself near the door or the window, careful not to draw attention to her scrutiny. Billy's mother, Sarah, seemed kind and gentle, always offering a warm smile and a quick word of encouragement. Billy would often run to her, burying his face in her leg, a gesture that seemed both affectionate and seeking comfort. However, it was Billy's interactions with his father, Michael, that caught Ms. Evans' attention. Michael was a large man, with a stern expression and a booming voice that seemed to fill the space around him. He wasn't outwardly unkind, but there was a certain tension in his presence, a rigidness in his posture that made Ms. Evans uneasy. She noticed that Billy's demeanor changed noticeably when his father was around. He became even quieter, his movements more hesitant. He avoided eye contact, keeping his gaze fixed on the ground on several occasions. Ms. Evans observed Michael speaking sharply to Billy, even over minor things like forgetting his lunchbox or not putting his coat on properly. The words themselves weren't overtly harsh, but the tone was cutting, laced with impatience and disapproval. After these interactions, Billy would shrink visibly, his shoulders slumping, his eyes filled with a subtle but unmistakable fear. These subtle cues, the tension in Billy's posture, the averted gaze, the almost imperceptible flinch when his father spoke, they all painted a concerning picture. Ms. Evans' initial suspicions were starting to solidify. Something was definitely amiss in Billy's home life, and his father seemed to be at the center of it. Ms. Evans found herself caught in a difficult ethical quandary. Her heart ached for Billy, and her instincts screamed at her to intervene. But she was also acutely aware of the potential consequences of acting rashly. She had no concrete proof of abuse or neglect, only her observations and her gut feeling. Accusing a parent of wrongdoing without sufficient evidence could have devastating repercussions, not only for the family, but also for her own career. She wrestled with the responsibility she felt toward Billy and the need to respect the family's privacy. Where did the line between concern and interference lie? How could she ensure Billy's safety and well-being without overstepping her boundaries or making false accusations? The weight of this dilemma pressed heavily on her shoulders. She spent sleepless nights replaying the scenes she had witnessed, analyzing every interaction, every gesture, every fleeting expression on Billy's face. She researched child abuse indicators, comparing them to Billy's behavior, searching for a clear sign, a definitive answer. But the situation remained ambiguous, shrouded in uncertainty. She knew that intervening prematurely could damage her relationship with the family, making it even harder to help Billy. It could also drive the problem underground, making it more difficult to detect and address. On the other hand, inaction could mean leaving Billy in a potentially harmful situation, a risk she was unwilling to take. She needed to proceed cautiously, gathering more information, consulting with colleagues, and carefully weighing her options before taking any decisive action. The ethical tightrope she was walking felt increasingly precarious. With a carefully crafted strategy in mind, Ms. Evans scheduled a parent-teacher conference. She knew this conversation had to be handled with extreme delicacy. She couldn't directly accuse Michael of anything, but she needed to express her concerns about Billy's well-being. When Michael and Sarah arrived, Ms. Evans greeted them with a warm smile, trying to create a relaxed and open atmosphere. She started by praising Billy's strengths, his intelligence, his artistic abilities, and his quiet attentiveness in class. Then, she gently broached the subject of his anxiety. "I've noticed that Billy seems a little anxious at times," she began, choosing her words carefully. "He sometimes appears a bit startled by loud noises, particularly the school bell. It's something I've been keeping an eye on." She paused, allowing them to respond. Sarah looked concerned, but Michael remained impassive, his arms crossed over his chest. "Is he having trouble in class?" Michael asked, his voice sharp. "Not at all," Ms. Evans quickly replied. "He's a bright and capable student. It's more of an emotional thing. I've noticed he sometimes flinches when the bell rings, and I just wanted to see if you've observed anything similar at home." She carefully avoided using the word fear or making any direct connection to his parenting. She framed her concerns as observations, hoping to elicit information without triggering defensiveness. She wanted to understand if there was anything happening at home that might be contributing to Billy's anxiety, but she knew she had to tread lightly. The success of this conversation, and potentially Billy's well-being, hinged on her ability to navigate this delicate situation with sensitivity and skill. Michael's reaction was swift and defensive. His impassive facade crumbled, replaced by a visible agitation that sent a shiver down Ms. Evans' spine. "Anxious? Flinching?" he scoffed, his voice rising slightly. "He's just a boy. Boys get startled. There's nothing wrong with him." Sarah attempted to interject, placing a hand on Michael's arm, but he brushed her off dismissively. "He's perfectly fine at home," Michael continued, his gaze fixed on Ms. Evans. "We don't coddle him. He needs to toughen up. This generation is too soft." Ms. Evans tried to maintain her composure, but Michael's dismissive attitude and rising anger were making it increasingly difficult. She could see the concern etched on Sarah's face, a silent plea for understanding, but Michael was clearly unwilling to acknowledge, let alone address, any potential issues. "I understand that you may not have observed anything similar at home," Ms. Evans said calmly, "but I just wanted to bring it to your attention. Sometimes, children don't express their anxieties in the same way in different environments." "Well, I appreciate your concern," Michael said, his voice dripping with sarcasm, "but I assure you, there's nothing to worry about. He's a healthy, normal boy." He stood abruptly, signaling the end of the conversation. "We have to get going. Thank you for your time." As they left, Ms. Evans felt a knot tightening in her stomach. Michael's defensive reaction and thinly veiled hostility had only confirmed her worst fears. He wasn't just dismissive. He was actively trying to shut down any discussion about Billy's well-being. His agitation was a clear indication that something was amiss, that he was hiding something. The parent-teacher conference had not eased her concerns, it had amplified them, solidifying her belief that Billy was in a potentially dangerous situation. Haunted by the unsettling encounter with Michael, Ms. Evans knew she couldn't proceed alone. She sought the guidance of Mrs. Davison, the school counselor, a seasoned professional with years of experience in child welfare. Mrs. Davison's office was a haven of calm, filled with soothing colors and comfortable furniture, a space designed to put children at ease. Ms. Evans recounted her observations, starting with Billy's persistent flinching and culminating in Michael's defensive reaction at the parent-teacher conference. She shared her growing concerns about a potentially troubled home environment, emphasizing the subtle cues of fear and tension she had witnessed. Mrs. Davison listened intently, her expression thoughtful and empathetic. She asked clarifying questions, probing for details, and carefully considering every aspect of the situation. "It sounds like you have very valid concerns, Ms. Evans," she said finally. Michael's reaction is certainly a red flag. They discussed the ethical considerations, the importance of documentation, and the potential risks involved in intervening. Mrs. Davison stressed the need to proceed responsibly, following school protocol and adhering to legal guidelines. "We have a duty to protect our students," she emphasized, "but we also have to be mindful of due process and avoid making accusations without sufficient evidence." Together, they brainstormed possible next steps, weighing the pros and cons of each option. Mrs. Davison suggested a home visit, framed as a friendly check-in to better understand Billy's home environment. She also advised Ms. Evans to meticulously document all her observations and interactions, creating a detailed record of her concerns. Documentation is key, Mrs. Davison stressed. It's our best defense if we need to involve Child Protective Services. Ms. Evans left Mrs. Davison's office feeling a sense of relief, knowing she wasn't alone in this and had a clear path forward. The idea of a home visit was both daunting and necessary. Ms. Evans knew it was a crucial step in understanding Billy's situation. But she also recognized the potential risks. Michael's defensiveness at the parent-teacher conference had made it clear that he wouldn't welcome scrutiny. Mrs. Davison helped Ms. Evans craft a carefully worded letter to Billy's parents, requesting a home visit. The letter emphasized Ms. Evans' desire to get to know Billy better and to gain a better understanding of his learning environment. It framed the visit as a friendly check-in, an opportunity to collaborate and support Billy's academic and emotional growth. The letter made no mention of the flinching or Ms. Evans' specific concerns. Remember, Mrs. Davison cautioned, this is primarily a fact-finding mission. Observe everything, but don't be accusatory. Be friendly, be approachable, and let them lead the conversation. She reiterated the importance of meticulous documentation. Write down everything you see, hear, and feel, she advised. Note the details of the house, the interactions between family members, and any nonverbal cues you observe. The more information you have, the better equipped you'll be to make an informed decision about how to proceed. Mrs. Davison also stressed the importance of safety. If at any point you feel uncomfortable or unsafe, leave immediately, she said firmly. Your safety is paramount. Ms. Evans spent the days leading up to the home visit meticulously preparing. She reviewed her notes, practiced her conversation points, and mentally rehearsed different scenarios. She knew she had to be calm, observant, and non-judgmental. Billy's well-being depended on it. The house was a modest, well-maintained suburban home. As Ms. Evans stepped inside, she was greeted by Sarah, who offered a polite but strained smile. Michael stood behind her, his presence looming. His eyes watchful. The atmosphere felt staged, as if they were performing for an audience. The living room was meticulously tidy, almost sterile. There were no toys scattered about, no signs of a child's playful presence. Everything was in its place, perfectly arranged. Billy sat quietly on the sofa, clutching a stuffed dinosaur, his eyes wide and unreadable. Michael was overly attentive, hovering around Billy, constantly correcting his posture or reminding him to speak politely. Billy, say hello to Ms. Evans properly, he prompted, his voice laced with a subtle undercurrent of command. Billy would comply immediately, his voice barely a whisper. Ms. Evans tried to engage Billy in conversation, asking him about his favorite subjects in school and his hobbies. But Michael consistently interrupted, answering for him or steering the conversation in a different direction. He seemed determined to control the narrative, to present a picture of a happy, well-adjusted child in a loving and supportive home. Despite their attempts at normalcy, Ms. Evans sensed a palpable tension in the air. Billy appeared withdrawn and fearful, his body language conveying a sense of unease. He avoided eye contact with his father, his gaze darting nervously around the room. Sarah seemed anxious and subdued, her smiles forced and fleeting. The entire visit felt like a carefully constructed facade, a performance designed to mask something hidden beneath the surface. Ms. Evans made a mental note of every detail, meticulously documenting her observations. The seemingly normal exterior couldn't conceal the underlying tension and fear that permeated the atmosphere. The carefully constructed facade shattered in an instant. Sarah, attempting to offer Ms. Evans a cup of tea, fumbled in the kitchen. A metal pan, precariously balanced on a shelf, tumbled to the floor with a deafening crash. The sound reverberated through the otherwise silent house, a jarring explosion that ripped through the manufactured calm. Ms. Evans' attention immediately snapped to Billy. His reaction was even more pronounced than she had witnessed at school. He didn't just flinch, he recoiled, his entire body contorting as if struck. His eyes squeezed shut, his hands flew up to cover his ears, and a strangled cry escaped his lips. He was visibly trembling, his face contorted in a mask of pure terror. Michael's reaction was equally telling. He glared at Sarah, his face darkening with anger. Sarah, what was that? Can't you do anything right? He snapped, his voice sharp and accusatory. Sarah flinched at his words, her shoulders slumping in defeat. Ms. Evans knelt beside Billy, her voice soft and soothing. Billy, it's okay. It was just an accident, she reassured him, gently touching his arm. He didn't respond, his eyes still tightly shut, his body still trembling. Witnessing Billy's extreme reaction firsthand, Ms. Evans' last doubts vanished. This wasn't just a simple startle response, it was a deeply ingrained fear, a conditioned reaction to loud noises that spoke of something far more sinister. The incident provided irrefutable evidence of the trauma Billy was experiencing, solidifying her conviction that he was in a dangerous situation. The carefully constructed facade had crumbled, revealing the truth that lay hidden beneath. She knew, with absolute certainty, that she had to act. The moment Ms. Evans returned to school, she immediately sought out Mrs. Davison. The urgency in her voice and the distress etched on her face left no room for doubt. "We need to report this," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I saw it, Mrs. Davison. I saw how he reacted. Billy is terrified." Together, they meticulously compiled their documentation. Ms. Evans recounted every observation, every interaction, every detail of the home visit, including Michael's controlling behavior and Billy's extreme reaction to the dropped pan. Mrs. Davison added her own notes, providing context and professional insight. They carefully reviewed the school's reporting procedures, ensuring they followed protocol to the letter. They knew that reporting their concerns to Child Protective Services was a serious step, but they also knew it was the right thing to do. Billy's safety was paramount, and they couldn't ignore the evidence any longer. With heavy hearts, they made the call. Ms. Evans spoke to a caseworker, calmly and clearly outlining their concerns. She emphasized Billy's persistent flinching, his anxiety around his father, and his extreme reaction during the home visit. She provided detailed documentation, including dates, times, and specific observations. Mrs. Davison added her professional assessment, highlighting the potential risk factors and emphasizing the need for a thorough investigation. They both understood that Child Protective Services would need to conduct their own investigation, but they hoped their report would provide a starting point and help ensure Billy's safety. The weight of the decision settled upon them, a mixture of fear and relief. They had done everything they could, following their instincts and acting in Billy's best interest. Now, it was up to Child Protective Services to take the next steps. All they could do was wait, hoping that Billy would finally get the help he desperately needed. The wheels of Child Protective Services turned slowly but deliberately. A caseworker was assigned to Billy's case. A woman named Ms. Ramirez, known for her calm demeanor and her ability to connect with children. The investigation began with a series of interviews, conducted with sensitivity and discretion. Ms. Ramirez first spoke with Billy, creating a safe and comfortable environment for him to express himself. She used age-appropriate language and techniques, allowing him to draw pictures and play with toys while gently asking about his feelings and experiences at home. She asked about the loud noises, his relationship with his parents, and anything that made him feel scared or uncomfortable. Separate interviews were conducted with Michael and Sarah. Ms. Ramirez questioned them about their parenting styles, their disciplinary methods, and their awareness of Billy's anxiety. She observed their body language, their tone of voice, and any inconsistencies in their stories. Michael remained defensive and dismissive, while Sarah appeared more cooperative but also visibly anxious. Ms. Ramirez also spoke with other family members, including Billy's grandparents and an aunt, gathering additional perspectives on the family dynamics. She checked for any history of domestic violence, substance abuse, or other factors that could put Billy at risk. The investigation was a delicate balancing act, requiring Ms. Ramirez to gather information while minimizing the disruption to Billy's life and avoiding any further trauma. She worked closely with the school, keeping Ms. Evans and Mrs. Davison informed of her progress and seeking their input. The process was lengthy and emotionally draining, but Ms. Ramirez remained committed to uncovering the truth and ensuring Billy's safety. She knew that the decisions she made would have a profound impact on his life, and she approached her task with the utmost care and professionalism. The investigation revealed a truth that was both heartbreaking and infuriating. Michael, while not physically abusive, possessed a severe anger management problem. He frequently yelled, often over trivial matters, creating a tense and frightening atmosphere in the home. The yelling wasn't constant, but it was unpredictable, leaving Billy in a perpetual state of anxiety, never knowing when the next outburst would occur. Sarah, while seemingly gentle, admitted to feeling helpless to control Michael's anger. She had tried to reason with him, to encourage him to seek help, but he refused to acknowledge he had a problem. She feared his outbursts herself, often trying to shield Billy from their impact. The investigation also revealed that Michael's anger was often triggered by seemingly innocuous sounds. A dropped dish, a slamming door, even the ring of a telephone. These sounds had become associated with fear and tension for Billy, conditioning him to react with a flinch bracing himself for the inevitable explosion of anger. The school bell, with its sudden and jarring sound, had become a trigger, a constant reminder of the fear he experienced at home. Ms. Ramirez explained that Billy's flinching was a classic example of a conditioned response, a learned behavior triggered by a specific stimulus. The sounds hadn't caused physical harm, but they had created a psychological trauma, leaving Billy in a state of constant alert, anticipating danger. The seemingly ordinary sound of the school bell had become a symbol of fear, a constant reminder of the volatile environment he endured at home. The truth was out, a tapestry of anger, fear, and silence that had woven a web around Billy's young life. Armed with the truth, Child Protective Services moved swiftly to implement an intervention plan. The primary focus was on ensuring Billy's safety and creating a more stable and supportive home environment. Ms. Ramirez met with Michael and Sarah, presenting them with the findings of the investigation and outlining the required steps for intervention. Michael, initially resistant, eventually agreed to attend mandatory anger management classes. He was given a choice: comply with the recommended treatment or face the possibility of losing custody of Billy. The reality of the situation, the potential consequences of his actions, finally seemed to sink in. The intervention plan also included family counseling sessions designed to improve communication and address the underlying issues that contributed to Michael's anger. Sarah was encouraged to assert herself, to establish boundaries, and to seek support for herself. Billy was enrolled in individual therapy, providing him with a safe space to process his emotions and develop coping mechanisms for dealing with his anxiety. Ms. Ramirez closely monitored the family's progress, conducting regular check-ins and providing ongoing support. She worked with the school to ensure that Billy received any necessary accommodations and that Ms. Evans was kept informed of his progress. The intervention was not a quick fix, but it was a crucial first step. It provided the family with the resources and support they needed to address the underlying issues and create a healthier, more stable environment for Billy. The road to recovery would be long and challenging, but for the first time, there was hope. The cycle of fear and silence had been broken, replaced by a commitment to healing and growth. Slowly, painstakingly, Billy began to heal. The therapy sessions provided him with a safe space to express his fears and anxieties, to understand that he wasn't to blame for his father's anger. He learned coping mechanisms for managing his anxiety, techniques for calming himself when he felt overwhelmed. At home, the atmosphere began to shift. Michael, attending his anger management classes, started to recognize the impact of his behavior on his family. He learned to identify his triggers, to control his impulses, and to communicate his feelings in a healthier way. There were still setbacks, moments when his anger flared, but he was learning to manage it, to prevent it from escalating into a full-blown outburst. Sarah, empowered by the family counseling sessions, began to assert herself, setting boundaries and speaking up when Michael's behavior became unacceptable. She created a more nurturing and supportive environment for Billy, reassuring him that he was loved and safe. Gradually, Billy began to feel safer, more secure. The flinching didn't disappear overnight, but it became less frequent, less intense. He started to laugh more, to participate more actively in class, to engage with his classmates. The fear that had once clouded his eyes began to dissipate, replaced by a glimmer of hope, a spark of joy. Ms. Evans, watching his progress, felt a profound sense of relief and gratitude. She saw Billy slowly emerging from his shell, blossoming into the bright, capable child she knew he could be. The journey was far from over, but he was on the right path, surrounded by love and support. The healing had begun, and with it, a new chapter in Billy's life. Billy's journey to recovery was a testament to the power of observation, empathy, and proactive intervention. And at the heart of it all was Ms. Evans. Her observant nature, her ability to see beyond the surface, had been the catalyst that set everything in motion. She had noticed Billy's flinching, a subtle sign that something was amiss, and she had refused to dismiss it as a mere quirk. Her proactive intervention, her willingness to step outside her comfort zone and address her concerns, had made all the difference. She had navigated a complex ethical dilemma, balancing her concern for Billy's well-being with the need to respect the family's privacy. She had gathered information, consulted with colleagues, and carefully weighed her options before taking action. Her role in advocating for Billy had been crucial. She had been his voice, his champion, ensuring that his needs were met and that he received the support he deserved. She had been a safe adult, a trusted figure who provided him with a sense of security and stability during a time of turmoil. Billy's story is a powerful reminder of the importance of teachers as safe adults in children's lives. They are often the first to notice signs of trouble, the first to offer a helping hand, the first to advocate for those who cannot advocate for themselves. Ms. Evans' dedication and unwavering commitment to Billy's well-being had transformed his life, proving that even the smallest act of kindness can have a profound impact. Her actions underscored the critical role teachers play in creating safe and supportive learning environments where children can thrive both academically and emotionally. Months later, the classroom buzzed with the familiar energy of a new school year. Ms. Evans watched as Billy, now a confident second grader, eagerly participated in a math lesson. He still flinched occasionally when the bell rang, a subtle tightening of his shoulders, a fleeting shadow in his eyes. But the reaction was far less pronounced, less frequent. He was no longer the withdrawn, fearful child she had first encountered. He laughed freely, engaged with his classmates, and excelled in his studies. He still clutched his dinosaur backpack, but now it seemed more like a cherished companion than a shield against the world. During recess, Ms. Evans observed him playing tag with his friends, his face flushed with joy. A sudden, unexpected shout from another child caused him to startle, a quick intake of breath, a momentary closing of his eyes, but then he recovered, shaking it off, rejoining the game with a smile. As she watched him, Ms. Evans felt a sense of quiet satisfaction, a deep sense of purpose. She knew the journey was far from over, that Billy would likely continue to face challenges as he navigated his recovery. But she also knew that he was resilient, that he had the strength and the support he needed to overcome those challenges. She had played a part, a small but significant role, in his transformation. Her observant nature, her proactive intervention, had made a difference. She had helped him find his voice, his courage, his joy, and in doing so, she had reaffirmed her commitment to her profession, to her calling. She was a teacher, a safe adult, a champion for her students. And that was a role she embraced with pride and gratitude. Billy's story serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of vigilance, empathy, and responsible action when dealing with potential child welfare concerns. It underscores the fact that even subtle signs, like a persistent flinch, can indicate significant underlying problems that may be hidden beneath the surface of seemingly normal lives. It is a call to action for educators, caregivers, and community members to be observant, to be empathetic, and to be willing to step up and advocate for children who may be in need. It highlights the importance of trusting your instincts, of following your gut feeling when something doesn't seem right. It also emphasizes the need for responsible action, for following protocol, for documenting observations, and for seeking guidance from qualified professionals. Intervening in a child's life is a serious matter, and it should be approached with caution and care. Ultimately, Billy's story is a testament to the power of human connection, to the transformative impact of kindness and compassion. It demonstrates that even in the face of adversity, hope is possible, that healing is possible, and that even the smallest act of intervention can make a world of difference. It reminds us that every child deserves to feel safe, to feel loved, and to have the opportunity to thrive. And it is our collective responsibility to ensure that they do. Let Billy's story be a constant reminder to remain vigilant, to act responsibly, and to always prioritize the well-being of our children.